All right. You guys ready? Okay. Good evening, all. Welcome to the town board meeting, special meeting. March 26th, 2024. Please rise and salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Morgan,
Here.
Councilwoman McMahon,
Here.
Councilman Hanlon.
Here.
Councilman Niles.
Here.
Supervisor Molino.
Here. All right, thank you all. The only resolution that we call this meeting for is to waive the 30-day notice prior for an alcohol beverage license for the Rockwell Falls Inn LLC.
I'll make a motion to waive that.
I'll second it.
Okay.
All in favor?
Hold on a minute. I'd like roll call, please.
Councilman Morton,
Yes.
Councilwoman McMahon,
Yes.
Is there, before I vote, is there a rush for this? Is there a reason why he's opening business or something? Yes,
this is normal practice.
But it's
Okay.
normal, most
all
people.
right. Yes,
Councilman Hanlon.
yes.
And
Councilman Niles,
Yes.
Supervisor Molino,
I'll abstain on this one.
okay. So now we need a motion to adjourn to the special meeting and convene the workshop for short-term rentals.
I make a motion to adjourn from the normal scheduled meeting.
Actually, we do have one other. thing
Okay.
to discuss.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
What's the other thing?
Karen just needs some direction from the board. You're not taking any action.
Okay.
I had sent you all a copy of the letter that I had sent out as a result of our discussion at the last meeting when we had an executive session. And I received a message on my phone today, and this is pretty much it. I tried to write it down. This is Darian Miller, owner of 10 Church Street in Lake Luzerne. I've received your letter today in the mail requiring a reputable sewage pumping company to do an inspection. What I would like to do is a dye test, my own dye test, which I would timestamp with a cell phone video, or you could be present for it through my sewer system and toilets, which would be a lot easier to determine if that is coming from my property. And also I'm going to get a sample of the liquid that is on the surface of my property and test through a local lab. I will make sure of the chain of custody checking for fecal coliform. And then he asked me to give him a call back. Before I called him back, I did talk to the attorney because he's not really following what we decided to ask him for. You had directed me to tell him to have it inspected first and determine if it was working correctly. On the phone today, he said to me, that if the dye comes through, it will show that it's, that it's something is wrong. So I'm just looking for direction from you. I told him that I wasn't going to tell him that it was okay, that we would accept that as instead of having the system inspected, because I was acting under your direction. So again, I'm asking, I mean, he can certainly proceed with the dye test. In my opinion, he can proceed with the dye test and the sampling of the liquid that's on the ground, but it still doesn't tell you if his system is functioning correctly. And we've also done some research as on these dye tests, what happens. And it can, if the system, I guess, is functioning correctly, it may come through as quickly as 3 to 5 minutes. If you do the test
5 to 15
correctly.
minutes, if it's.
If it's, yes,
functioning
and it's
correctly.
supposed to be done by a certified somebody, not necessarily a homeowner. And the other problem is that if there is a problem, that the dye will go through to wherever, and if it seeps through the ground and ends up coming up in this, where this liquid is, it could take how many?
Up to 5 days to reveal itself.
Okay, so, I mean, not to interrupt you, but we have our standards for the town. And he wants to say, nix that, and I'll do my own test.
Well, we don't necessarily have the standards of, you weren't at the meeting. There's some liquid, standing liquid on this person's property. They're thinking it's coming from a neighboring property. They wanted us to take care of it. And so the approach that the board came up with when I brought it to them was for this owner to have their system tested first to make sure that the problem isn't there before we even begin to think about going elsewhere to find out where it's coming from, because there's a lot to doing that if we do that.
But I agree with you, you can certainly do those tests. Maybe our response should be, it's a good idea to do those tests at your expense if you want, however, it does not necessarily mean we won't require the inspection at a later date. Or something
And
like
the
that.
other thing is that the dye test said to be by a certified someone, right?
Suggested it should be.
Yeah,
It's not a
suggested it.
requirement, but
But then again, if we end up having to do it, it's gonna be either Chris or I performing this, so I don't know.
it requires.
you had
a certain
the
amount of
color of
volume water to go through the system, so it has to be measured based on the flow rate of the house. There are things that maybe we don't have the expertise to,
But neither does he, though.
right?
So blind leading the blind. So by us doing it, the town, we're covered by the color of law, or we're covered under town of Lake Luzerne doing it. However, our approach to getting it done is either we have a contractor do it, or we provide our own test. Do we have anything that this talks about in our town
No
ordinances?
provisions for testing it.
Nothing.
No, it's
No.
not our responsibility as
Okay.
a town to have anything to do with it. It's the homeowner's responsibility. And I think we should just stand by what we said last time, because him doing it's not going to solve anything.
No.
Nobody's going to believe him. None of the other homeowners are going to believe him. You know, even if his tests come up however they want.
That was, I was hammering to that point, is it carries no weight. He could say, oh, it's not coming from mine. All the time it was, and we have no official eyes on it. There's no one to say, well, what's what? And that's just.
But in order to move it forward in the way that he wants it, it has to be done by a certified person. And then if it comes back and it's not his, then the town can look at it.
Are you standing by, get it inspected first? Then
Yeah.
that's my question.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And then we'll take the next step from that, depending upon what that result is. Okay, that's what I
don't
needed.
think I agree 100%, but there's nothing wrong with telling the guy, you can go ahead and. do whatever you
I
want.
can say that to him. He can proceed.
I could test mine tomorrow, but it doesn't mean the good you test it. Yeah, like you're saying, it doesn't. Okay, great.
It's
But
not-
still, we have our.
It's not, it's the right word, certified, or
Yes.
tested to, or
Sure.
whatever. I don't like the idea of us going and watch him doing the test. For some reason, I don't think that's a good idea.
All right, we'll just proceed
That's
the
just my
same
opinion.
way, that we're gonna request that he gets it inspected by a certified septic company or a reputable septic company, I think is the way I worded it.
Yeah.
And that depending upon the result of that, we'll take a next step from there, if necessary.
Just to clarify, this individual is next to a piece of property and there's a dispute of where something's coming from. This is what this comes from. Of the place we
On
were
this
talking about
gentleman's
across from,
property is some pooling water that,
that was across some stones, right?
The pump
Over in
is
there.
actually on his property.
But the
Okay.
adjacent properties have septic systems right over the property line.
maybe, we don't know that for sure.
In 93, there was a permit applied for to build a septic system there, but that's the most recent information we have.
Interesting.
Okay,
Are you comfortable with that, Karen?
yes, I'm comfortable with that.
You want to?
Okay,
Tim?
did you get through your motion?
I would like to reinstate that motion. Restate, let me like to make a motion to adjourn from the scheduled meeting and go into our workshop for STRs, special meeting, workshop slash.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
Carried. Okay, we are now in the workshop for short-term rentals.
So, no, I'm glad you are, because it's a lot. Just think about it.
I was planning, yeah.
I'm gonna let Chris handle this. He's been the one doing most of this short-term rental work, so
If you don't mind, I'd like to start off with the one thing that I didn't have on there, because it just came up today. I received an application, and in their rules, I suggested that they include no fireworks or fireworks displays, as our short-term regulation requires that to be the case. Most people have put it on their list, but this property owner didn't, and I was wondering what the board and our attorney thinks of requiring that to be on our rules. I do have copies if you want me to distribute them, of the New York State firework laws, which are allowing sparkling devices to be used and sold, but not aerial fireworks. Our short-term regulation just states no fireworks or firework displays. Can you clarify what your intent of firework displays is? Is that for like a Roman candle, like legal firework, as far as New York State regulations goes? I've had that question a couple of times.
what do our New York State laws say?
Well, I can actually have a copy of it here for you. Distribute it.
I mean, just off the cuff, I'd say mirror that,
Here to that, so spark.
just mirror that, whatever it says.
I've changed.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just continuity between state law and town law. It's not having this weird.
This is the latest. This is a printout from the New York State website. Okay. And this is a Q&A from New York State Homeland Security Emergency Services, kind of clarifying what that law.
Now, the thing too is that if this is their private property, I mean, they can go so far as no fires at all. They can require no sparklers, nothing, I guess, right? You would think it's their own property.
I think they would want to, but
You'd think they would, if they had that option of saying, okay, great, that's New York state law. Well, we don't want anything.
Right.
How is that, counselor?
I mean, I
mean,
agree.
Okay,
I guess the question is just, what did the board have in mind when they put that provision in here? Were you thinking no fireworks at all, or were you thinking just pursuant to state law?
that's what I was thinking.
And that's what I'm looking to find out too.
But yes, they can put in their own short-term rental rules if they don't want any fireworks, but that's up to the property owner.
Yes.
That isn't gonna help, and I think we're after to stop obnoxious fireworks.
Like the big.
What's your definition of obnoxious?
That's why I said it wasn't.
Well,
Yeah, and it's like the whole sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's leave that alone.
The New York State law defines those as ground-based fireworks versus sparkling devices. Sparkling devices are handheld sparklers, Roman candles, but include let's see, party poppers and snappers, those little tiny devices, right? Those are sold now at tents and they could be permitted to be sold. But aerial fireworks are banned in New York State, so.
I thought that Warren County banned. That was why we didn't see those pop-ups anymore. They also ban the smaller ones. I think it's a county decision.
They have to opt out.
We
and they
didn't
weren't on the
ban
list of
the
opt-out
fireworks, but
counties.
ban the sale of them in Warren County, those tents.
We ban the sale.
Oh, okay.
But possession and use is okay.
Hmm.
Okay,
So you guys still specify because they buy them in Jersey, they can bring them up.
so can we must adhere to New York State or current New York State firework
Yes.
standard?
Yeah, that's what
Some change it like that?
Yeah, I don't want to add 3 pages to our.
No.
SDR.
That simplifies it.
Let's reinvent the wheel. I don't want to do that.
When you make the changes, can you redline them?
Yes,
Just so we know like what was changed.
Are you keeping notes?
I will be.
Come on, Chris, get on it.
Is that a question? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or accusation.
Do
I've
you
got a
want a
red pen
pad of
for it.
paper?
No, I've got it.
He's allegedly taking notes.
I was prepared. All right, so that was the only one that's not on the list of issues and notes that I have for you. So if you want to start from the first bullet point on the first page. Clean up clean up add language for open land use and development sewage disposal permits. This was one of Karen's contributions. Should we require open permits to be closed upon my inspection? I mean, it's not technically a violation. Karen, please correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's an open permit, how do we want to handle issuing a short-term rental permit on a property that has an open construction permit?
Can you explain what you mean? I'm
Yeah.
not sure what you're.
So they're in process of building, let's just say, an outbuilding. There's an open permit, maybe it's been renewed a couple of times. We see this sometimes.
Oh,
Should we require the finalization of it? Some cases we inspect it and it's already been finished, but they never got a county inspection to CO it. So in that case, should we require them to CO it before I issue a short-term rental permit?
Well, there's a little bit more to it than that. The county has been going back and looking through their records to see if they have any open permits that have expired, not been renewed, still not a current permit, and they make them close them out or renew them or whatever it takes. But there are permits that we issue here at the town that do not get issued at the county level, such as fences, signs,
Ancillary structures.
ancillary structures, septic permits. So we may have open permits in our file and it's really not addressed in the short-term rental law. There, it says to look for violations, but not at the open permits. So that's part of where that question came up, because when we pull the file, if we find something that's not been closed out, we're trying to get them cleaned up and closed out so we didn't know if we should add something in there to that. The county has been pretty good about closing them out when they come across
If
them.
they had a permit for it, but if
Right.
we had a permit for it, do we have the authority to require them to close it out before they obtain their short-term rental permit?
I guess if you have the authority to request a permit to be issued, I guess you'd have the authority to.
paragraph D
No, I
says
don't know.
may deny a permit for any of the following reasons.
Right,
If it doesn't follow our permit laws, it's not ready. Since we're the one sending you out there, and you're a town official, and you're like, you're great there, but you haven't closed out our permits.
and is that a local code that we're not,
Yeah.
that's required to close out a permit?
Good question.
So if it's not a code, does it hold any weight in?
Well, it does say all permits closed out, right? I mean, if we look at it again, it says all.
It says. Article 5, it starts down at the bottom.
It says outstanding violations.
Right.
Right here.
D5. you go to the next page.
Put out any violations and open permits.
Yeah,
Right, all we need to do is add the words open permits.
I'm trying to think of all the different scenarios. There could be someone that just started a project and therefore
Well,
it's
if-
open permits.
Yeah,
Do we prohibit someone if they're doing development on the property from renting it out while there's a,
we could put expired open permits. I don't know.
there we go, I like that.
Expired open permits.
I mean, I think then they're in violation. Right?
I don't think we have anything in our code about,
Well, only
Issuing a
that they say that they're good for the zoning compliance. Certificates are
For 2
good for
years.
2 years.
but then what happens after 2 years?
They were supposed to be getting them renewed, but we haven't trailed that.
Renewed or a CO has to be, or
Right.
has to be closed out, so it's technically a violation if it's not.
That would be a violation? Okay, then I guess that.
Keep in mind,
that.
the overall objective of this short-term rental law, which was to regulate short-term rentals so that they're nice, compatible with the town. Purpose of the regulation, and I'm not saying that you're trying to do this, but the purpose of the regulation was not to put the screws to these people. The purpose is to try to bring these places into something we can enjoy and live with. Which makes me think, I know you guys need direction and you like things to be kind of cut and dry, but maybe we could give you some latitude on this and say something like, you know, you guys have the authority to put a time limit on it. You can tell that applicant that they have 90 days to clean up this open-ended thing, or if it's somebody that's a repeat offender, you know, you might want to say, you got 30 days to do that.
Well, on that note, we have 30 days to make a decision on a short-term rental application, so.
Permit.
Right, a permanent application, so can we can we give an extension? Do we have your authority to give an extension in these scenarios? So otherwise, after 30 days, we have to make within 30 days, we have to make a decision whether to accept or deny the permit.
Yeah,
That's one thing we didn't think about.
yeah. I want to make your jobs easier, you know, somehow, but sometimes
And not upset the
apple cart, yeah.
public so much.
But sometimes the way to make your job easiest is to say, this is the book, I'm sorry, but this is the book. Like, in a baseball umpire, call them up, call them, say, don't debate it.
The 30-day limit?
Yeah, I think it's in procedure, yeah, Article 5, Section A. Third line down. And, you know, if we deny the permit, then they have to go through the whole process again and pay another application fee presumably.
Well, this says you shall have 30 days to review the application and either issue the permit with or without conditions. Why don't we start making it a condition of the permit that they have X number of days to complete this
It's
project?
already in there. Yeah, we already have an out right
That's a
there.
good idea.
Okay, so I
So
could issue a condition that this has to be remedied in X amount of time. And if not, then I revoke the permit.
Which gives you latitude, it gives you wiggle room, you know.
Okay, I see that.
One of your leverages you have is, it's not an issue yet, but if we start to get up close to that 120 number, you know, they're gonna go to the end of the line.
Right.
I don't know. Dane, I mean, all that, but the maximum number of permits in town is 101.
Yeah.
We're at like 60.
Okay. I'm
So
satisfied with that.
if somebody already has a permit and they start a project, how will that work?
Well,
During
it
their-
won't be a violation until time passes, enough time passes.
say that again, Dane. I'm
If somebody has a short-term rental permit and then they want to build a fence, the way this is currently written, are they
They're
then
allowed
not
to
able?
get that permit for the
Yeah.
fence.
They can get and still rent.
Yes.
Okay.
They only have to go through the inspection process again. Correct me if I'm wrong, if it changes the maximum occupancy.
Right.
Okay.
Or a
That's-
town inspection annually, but not a Warren County inspection. Warren County is it, or septic is if they change occupancy. A town inspection is annual upon renewal of the permit.
So if they had a bedroom, gotta redo that inspection. But the permit would still stay valid that they have unless it expires on time.
Yeah, meanwhile, right, but if they're adding that bedroom and the septic system isn't connected, or they have to add a new septic tank, I could see some scenarios where there's an in-between downtime.
I think good judgment should prevail.
We haven't really been having issues with current open permits. It's the older permits that we're finding that have never been
Finalized,
finalized.
yeah,
So that's what we're trying to clean up. And we are. It's taking some time, but we're getting there.
okay. So separate entities, the second point down, within the same building or property, that's not a hotel, motel, bed and breakfast, campground, rental cabin. should we be issuing one permit per dwelling unit? If their intent is to have, let's say hypothetically, 5 separate entities potentially simultaneously renting. Each of those 5 rental units might be a dwelling as far as having a kitchen and a bathroom. But they're being rented to different entities. Should we require a different permit for each of those dwellings?
How does the county treat it? Do they do 5 reports or 1 report?
Well,
Have it come up.
if it's a hotel motel, it's 1 report, right? Are you referring to their short-term rental inspection or,
Yeah.
or like a deal with,
If they have to set an occupant load, well, I don't know.
we haven't had that scenario.
haven't.
Yeah.
We had.
We had
potential
one
applicant, but
scenario.
he withdrew.
But
Yeah.
you do have this scenario right now, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, in fact,
See, some of the, what were traditionally cottages, hotels, motels are now turning more to short-term rental than actually. And when we approach them about short-term rental, we're getting into a situation where they want to claim, they want the easiest way out as possible. It's the only nice way to say it, and that's not even nice, but so we're running into, we've, on one property, we've a couple of properties, we've had 2 buildings that they wanted to rent out as short-term rentals to different entities at the same time, and it was, do we do 1 permit per parcel, or do we do 1 permit per unit dwelling that's going to be rented out? That was what it boils down to.
If it's under 5 units, we can't classify it as a hotel motel. And, we do have these rental cabins, but they're exempt from the short-term rental law.
each one of these are individual rented spaces and their own kitchens, their own blah, blah, blah. They may, then chances are they share the same septic.
Right.
Chances are, who knows? I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe
The
it's a-
cabins are
it's a
different.
little further
Yeah.
down the line in the paper, but yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I would treat each of them with a permit. They got a 5-for-1 deal right there. They got 5 places there and they're gonna rent them all out. Each one's a permit. I would say just off the top of my head, I mean, they're individual buildings. I mean,
It's not per property, per parcel, you get a permit to rent.
no, that means they could have a
You're saying.
120 acres and have 1,500, this big building with,
You're saying per unit.
yeah, that's what I mean, per
It
unit.
becomes difficult to set a maximum occupancy load for the county too, I'd imagine, if they're 5 separate units and you're saying, okay, well, you can have 4 per unit.
Yeah,
True.
How enforceable is that? And my permit placard is gonna state, let's just say 4 per unit, you got 5, gonna state 20. And then how do you make sure that it's being adhered to?
That it's not 10 and 10
Right.
rather than 5 and 4.
no, there's the,
Do they have separate mailboxes?
I believe they do. That's something that we're trying to figure out too. It's not really in our department.
Are
Right.
the units numbered?
Well,
I
the
don't
one
know.
got withdrawn,
Yeah, that,
so we don't know.
yeah.
I see a potential addition, a little reworking of the verbiage, the wording to include places like these prior motels that are now short-term rentals. I think there's a hole we missed around that one.
I think if we,
I'd say individual.
yeah.
Period.
I agree.
Well, and if you don't know if there's 10 or 20, you can't help that.
Mhm.
You can't help
I
that.
think
You
it-
can't, I mean, it's like controlling the sound or the noise in the town. We're not gonna send you hide in the bushes. Really? A bunch of drunk college boys go beat you up, what I mean? We're not into that, I mean, so they're individuals, they're being treated as individuals on his land. And maybe a change in their wording of if there are multiple units, they shall be labeled. And, A, or however you want to figure out how unit 1,
Sure.
It's
something like
permitted, so
yeah, permitted separately.
I agree for another reason. I think it's just a matter of time before that would be the
Mhm.
only way you can do
Yep.
it. Like Tim was saying, if the property has room, they had a cabin. And now you got 5 motel units, so the rest of the others, you got a cabin. Should that be
One-
an STR or should that be part of the motel? It's just, I think this will be simpler than long.
How's the max occupancy determined? Is that based off the septic or is it?
No.
How
Square
do they-
footage of the living areas, the
It's-
bedrooms, and if the living room's big enough, there's a certain threshold that if it passes, if it's bit larger than a certain size, then it can count as living space, and then a formula applies to that as well. The county does it when they do their inspection.
It's the state standard.
Okay.
They actually, their inspection tells us what would be allowed. Kind of did that on purpose, so we can be the bad guy.
No problem being a bad guy.
That's kind of a touchy one. Are we in agreement?
I think it's the only way really to deal with it. They're individual units that could be rented out to individual people or at different entities. I mean, you're forced into handling it like that. What if the person has two properties adjacent to each other and one's on one, one's on the other? I mean, there are two entities right there just because the property line's down the middle.
Goes to the planning
Doesn't
board,
change
goes to the
anything.
property line.
Just run to the property.
And then you got the same problem
Mhm.
anyways, so.
And then if we have a cap of 120 short-term rentals and they've already have 7,
There you go.
That's
Like the motel down the road.
yeah,
I'm watching now because I see the garbage coming out. Each one's got a mailbox. How do we do that?
We're being told that that's long-term rentals. So we
Those
have
are
to
long
follow-
term, yes, okay.
But that's the building that we're looking at right now.
How do we know they're gonna be long term or just a week?
Right.
It's crazy.
So you kind of in agreement with that? For you?
I like everything about that except for the one property with 7 units taking up 7 of the Airbnb slots in town.
Well, then they'd be considered a hotel motel.
If it's 5 or more,
Even with 5, let's say 4,
that's still taking 5.
yeah.
I think a lot of that's gonna have to go on case to case, you know, it's. Because not everyone, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of just houses that are short-term rentals, and then you're gonna give 6 or 5 to someone because they happen to have 5 cabins.
right? And does that fall into maybe the rental cabin category? Even though they're not separate cabins, they're separate units. on
I'm
the same
thinking of the
parcel.
one down on East River Drive that we've got nothing on yet.
Whispering Pines.
How does that fall into what we're talking about? Because we really don't know yet. They haven't given us
Right,
an answer as to what they're really doing there.
I thought that was cabin rentals. I didn't
They-
realize that was.
As far as we've determined, they don't fall under New York State Department of Health because of what they're claiming and the number of people that they have in there at one time. However, there are scenarios where they really should be considered, it's very, this hotel motel that is turning into short-term rental-ish operations is a very gray area for all the entities involved in permitting them. Let's just say that, because you can't seem to get clear answers enough for one person, one entity to take the jurisdiction of it.
I think if our zoning's got hotel motel in it, they shouldn't be eligible for short-term rental. They're already classified as a hotel motel. And we have cabins also. That shouldn't be a short-term rental. That should be cabins.
so in one of these cases, these 5 units were being told they're for long-term rentals. They pursued a DOH permit for the septic there, but couldn't obtain it. And then to be a hotel motel, and then they reversed and sought out the short-term rental permit and withdrew their interest in that. So now we're being told they're
Yeah,
long-term.
well, they're not a short-term rental. They shouldn't be able to do that. They're a cabin or a motel or a hotel.
So you're gonna end up with some entities that fall under no one's jurisdiction because DOH they won't be under their jurisdiction because of the number of units and the number of
Number of
people that they're
beds.
renting and number of
Go by
beds.
beds, and each bed size, there's a double or a single size bed, and they count the amount of beds in there, and if it doesn't total to over whatever it is, 11, I think it is, then it doesn't fall into under their jurisdiction.
So tell us what you think we should do. What's your idea? What have you guys put your heads together and come up with a suggestion?
Well,
What you think would work?
without any way to be sure what it's actually being used for, how are we gonna know unless there's a listing? That's all we have to go by. If we had something like Granicus, perhaps, the short-term rental, the address identification service, maybe we'd have more information that we can determine that, yeah, it's being used as a short-term rental versus long-term rental and proceed forward at that point.
How much is Granicus a year?
We priced it out as just under 7,000 a year.
How much, and, okay. Could we use funds from our bed tax to pay for that service?
I think we're working on something like that.
Yeah, if you want me to tell you, today we just passed, I'm chairman of the op tax committee. And we put out 45,000 to Granicus to do the whole county. Now, the question was brought up by me. That can the towns say, give us a price, 1,000, 2,000. Get some information from Granicus, and they were checking that out.
Piggyback on with
Yeah.
the county,
Yeah.
maybe a shared.
Yeah, but like Lake George, Queensbury. I think the other one is Chestertown, don't hold me to that one. They already do it on their own.
But I know Lake George used to,
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do.
I think it would definitely look, I like
Because
that.
I actually can get the copy of what I gave Chris and Karen. And they're really gonna go after them. And they guarantee an X amount of income from it.
Maybe it should be,
Subsidize the
what do
45,000.
you think? I mean, what do you think? It'd be something we could
I hope
discuss
we can
about
do
that?
it.
Do you think the resolution to county level's got legs?
Oh, yeah, no, it's already, when we pass it on op tax, now it has to go Friday to the finance committee. And if they agree with the op tax committee, it'll go to the full board,
In fact, this will be paying for itself.
definitely.
It'll pay the bed
Well,
tax.
it will
We'll
save
go.
us on Chris, not that I wanna save him.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
He has to sit by that computer.
Exactly.
And go through what people report about how beautiful it was and this.
You're
and try to
chasing your
find
tail.
out.
But it
takes
doesn't
a lot of
cover
time.
every renter, because not every renter has to leave a
Yeah.
review. So all I have is a review as evidence to say, all right, look, clearly someone was renting without a permit, but that's all I have to go on at this point.
When I was putting this thing together, I met with Lake George. And at that point, that Granis thing was costing them like $1,200 or $1,500. And he said, you gotta sign up for this, it's definitely worth it. Now it's, what you say, $7,000.
They're dropping it, and it might even be cheaper if we piggyback, the county, which I'm.
Mhm.
I like that idea.
I'd like to see that happen, because you get stabbing in the dark
mean-
with us. You guys are spending way too much, you know what I mean? Chasing
They're
after
spending a lot
ghosts.
of time, this thing goes on, I mean, it's crazy, every day, we had a guy, Chris and I just talked to him today. We had a complaint here that whoever's renting a short-term rental didn't plow the parking spot out.
Yeah.
And the guy says to us, you were there, oh, I didn't rent it this week. Maybe my mother was in it. I mean, it is actually sometimes getting to be a zoo.
Well, back on this, I'm just thinking, we're looking at a Pandora's box. If we're gonna start giving short-term rentals to hotels and motels, the next step is gonna be, and nothing against you, bed and breakfast, it's gonna be,
Well,
it's going out of control.
I thought, I'm under the impression we're gonna pursue it if it's not a hotel motel, bed and breakfast campground. And it's in this gray area in between, that's what we're looking at, requiring a permit for each unit on the property.
And I think that's gonna have to be case by case,
Right.
because everyone is gonna be different.
Like we don't have too many apartment complexes or apartment buildings, but hypothetically, this is similar to an apartment building. But Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, an apartment building would be under some sort of other jurisdiction for maybe the DOH? Is it above a certain size apartment?
I
building?
don't think it's DOH, I think it's state building codes that they have to go in once every 3 years and inspect apartment buildings. But that's about it, I think. I don't think that. I don't know with apartment buildings if DOH does or not. I've not had to find that out, but
Okay.
For our purpose, for what we were trying to do is, again, if you have one parcel and you've got more than one rental unit on it, do you issue them one permit or one permit per each unit that they're renting? That's the question. Do you want us to look at it case by case? And if you do want us to look at it case by case, who's going to make that decision? Us or you?
Well, I'm not a big fan of micromanaging. I think that is your department. That's what you should be doing. If you come up against a brick wall, that's what we're here to help you with. Am I wrong on that, or?
No, if, I just want to make sure that if you want us to make that decision, that we've been told that you make that decision and not to bring it to you on a case by case basis. You know, if we've got what used to be a hotel that's operating as a short-term rental, and then, do you want us, I mean, what we've been doing is we've been calling DOH. Are they under your jurisdiction? Yes or no? If the answer comes back no, then we look at it as a short-term rental. That's how we've kind of been making the determination. So if you're good with that, we'll just continue. And
Now, there's also, this is a business I've taken up now, I make tags for animals. It's called a kennel tag. They have a main tag for the reference to kennels, but they put the main tag on the whole kennel. Then they have sub kennel tags for individual kennels. You see where I'm going with this?
Mhm.
So if they issue a permit, an umbrella permit, one permit, how many units do you have? Oh, I have 5 times 5. One fails, you jerk the permit. That's a them problem, not a you problem. You're the one who wanted 5 on your property. We're doing you a favor, we're doing everybody else a favor in this business. We're taking up the space of one permit. You have 5 properties on this one permit. Maybe that's addition, something we can do.
I see that.
If you have, you know what I mean? You, okay,
Yeah.
here's a property, it's listed, here's your permit to run this. You have 5 units, that's 5 different inspections. You said, you know, if it's, you know,
Is that classified as one short term?
it would. That's the question. I'm trying to help you, give you an out here. Just that one idea popped in my head. Maybe there's something we can work with here. An umbrella permit with these 5 units or whatever underneath it. How does that translate from you, like you said, how does that translate down? Answers your question, answers Dane's question
Yeah.
of taking up all that, taking up one permit. Maybe work on, think about that one.
Sure, no, I see
Give
that.
it a week or so, give it a couple days, maybe you think of it, maybe you can come up with an answer, because it has to, we have to have an answer.
Similar to a hotel permit where they have a certain amount of rooms
Yep.
indicated.
all
And
right,
that's fairness to everybody else who wants to have a SDR.
I think that's a great idea. You just give them one, and if there's a problem with one of the 5, then it
That's
has
their
to
problem.
stop.
That's their
with
problem,
everything.
that's it.
Okay,
Well, I got,
I think
that's
that's
on
a
you.
great idea.
Yeah.
all right, that makes sense
Keep
to
in
me.
mind one more thing, which isn't stated in our preamble or whatever you call it. The reason to limit these short-term rentals in town is so that we don't price out people that are young and want to live here, buying a house. And I don't think a motel STR is really going to be an issue for that.
Sure.
So I'm kind of wavering, whereas before I liked the idea of permit per unit, and now I'm kind of backing off that a little bit. And I'll chime on with Tim's idea. One permit with. So.
This
For
is
this
more like,
subdivisions.
Yeah, for this gray area, but if
Yeah.
we take that, nurture that, develop that into an
we can do
idea.
it, we'll think about that, because that way, one of the questions came up with, how do you set the occupant load if you're doing one permit for 5 buildings? But this way, if you do like a sub building, you
Right.
know, as, you know, I'm gonna call it sub, give it another name, but that way we could say building A, 4 occupants, building C, 6 occupants, et cetera. That would work out better that way, so.
And it would address Dane's concern. In terms of the total in the town.
Right,
okay,
all
sounds
right,
good.
we'll toss that around, it's good,
I
good
think we
thought.
got some, yeah, I think we got some answers there. I think we got some workable material.
I
Okay,
was thinking the exact same thing, so that That makes a
Right,
lot of
yeah.
sense.
Moving right along.
So, the next one down, any person or entity, is how it's written in the short-term rental regulations. Violating a law, shall be guilty of offense. Should we have any property owner? I mean, any person or entity who shall violate any provision of this law, like let's say the fireworks, for example, that's, could be the renter. But
You can
understandably,
You can only enforce it against the owner.
right, so does any person or entity clean up that language, or is that clear enough?
Here's what I wrote.
I thought it was clear enough, but we
Okay.
could change it to owner.
What I put in the bullet was penalty fine applies to the owner.
That's the only way it can operate.
You just change the word to the bullet.
Well, the entity would refer to any LLC name, right?
Yeah,
So we're gonna keep that in there just for that reason.
okay, so any violation falls on the property owner, not the,
Just
Actual
right,
person.
property owner, that should clarify it, correct?
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, just take out or renter.
No, there is no renter.
That's his bullet that you're looking
Oh,
at.
that's not,
That's not the
Oh.
language of the.
Okay.
The language of the article is any person or entity, so we're gonna
Okay.
change that to
property owner.
any property owner.
Okay. We had a short-term rental permit holder question this, they did not want the word overnight, maximum overnight occupancy on their permit. Cause it implies more people can stay there during the day, as long as they skedaddle before.
Just, just scratch the overnight maximum.
Oh, wait, so you're not gonna allow visitors at all in there?
Well, that's, yeah, that's,
That's the
Yeah.
problem.
They have to make their own rules for that.
That's what I think. I
Yeah,
think it should be the owner's
Mhm.
responsibility.
Yeah, the town
to
should stay out of it and then the owner should deal
You
with
can't
it.
control it,
just
goes over to
leave it
someone's
at
house.
Yeah.
maximum overnight.
Stay right away from that one.
so
and
leave
they
it the way
decided
it is.
to have 20 or 50 people in the property for an event or a party.
That's
Well,
the,
that's different. That's getting into commercial uses. So,
Where's the line?
I mean, I guess it depends on why they're there. If they're there for an organized party, that becomes a commercial use, becomes like an event space.
And that's on the owner. That's not on you.
then the owner would be in violation.
The owner's in.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any regulations on using it as an event space.
I know, but I guess what I'm saying is we can always deal with these things through the violation avenue. Like we can define it in a way that we can take care of it.
I'll leave it the way it is.
When they change the classification of the building and what it's used for, it's a business then.
Right.
And you tell them, go ahead and do that. You're gonna lose your STR permit because now you're running a business. What? Yeah, well, there you go. They'll end that real quick.
We start having a party every weekend, but yeah, we got a problem.
I mean,
Do we even have a county code against that? Or Mary, you saying this is like a state or a county code?
well, I guess I'm saying we'd look at your zoning, how you define certain zoning areas, and we could probably shoehorn it into something.
don't
I
know.
just think this is getting into like too nitpicky.
Okay,
I mean, I guess it's up to the board, but I don't.
I agree.
I agree.
We can't make it too bad like that, right?
This could be 100 pages long. I mean, it's nothing wrong with the question, but I say leave it the way it is.
Well, we'll leave the maximum overnight.
Yeah.
In there, and then anything else, if they should have rules about partying and all of that in
in
their own rules.
some of them do,
Yeah,
I've seen it, but it's, 50-50, I would say.
The ones that don't will once their house gets trashed.
Oh, yeah, they'll
do
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Garbage cans, next point down, the it's saying secured with tight fitting covers. So a lot of these newer garbage cans don't have a lid that clicks on, it's just a hinged lid that if it gets knocked over or an animal can poke its head into it, it could get at the garbage. What is the intent of the tight fitting covers provision? Is that to prevent the spillage of garbage on the property if an animal
Yeah,
gets
that
it?
was the.
No, well, it was that intent, but it's our law and that they have to have a lid, tight lid.
well,
And not a spring lid either.
Right,
Chris has been handing out the same flyer that Cindy hands out to new people in town about the lids on the garbage. He's been giving that same flyer with this packet. But people have been coming back and they say, oh, we've already bought our garbage cans. We bought those on the hinged lids. Well, the garbage men don't like the hinged lids because they hit them in the head when they're, dumping them or whatever. And they're easily gotten into by raccoons and whatever. Whereas the ones that's on this flyer, I wish we had one with us, that actually has a clicking closed lid.
Sure.
So that there's been you wouldn't believe the discussions that we have with people, and garbage cans is right at the top of the list.
So if that's a town policy, then they follow it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just supposed to be a lid that can be taken off the can.
Mhm.
So I think just keep giving out that flyer, right? And if they come back and say, we already bought it, you say, too bad.
Do we have anything in
I
our,
realize this is easier for me to say sitting here when I don't deal with these people.
we have that illustration that's in the clerk's office, but I don't know, was there ever a local law or an ordinance adopted to enforce that? Or is it
I think
kind of a
there's
guideline?
resolutions.
I think
that
the
go back to
resolutions,
it.
yeah, and it had to be a 30-gallon. It can't be a 52
Yeah, we
gallon.
did this a while back.
Yeah, a while back we did that.
You could add the resolution to the packet or
So-
the flyer.
Are these questions people are asking you?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We got,
About the
come
garbage
on,
cans?
Yes.
dude, let's use your brain here on
Oh, yeah.
this.
Well, tell them, well, you, come on, dude, you wanna have a permit? You wanna have a permit, dude? Don't dude me. No, this is what every other household has to put up with. Tell them, deal with it.
Exactly.
Just say, deal with it. You want the permit or no? This comes down to,
Okay.
you want the permit? No, yes, no, yes. Psych, you want the permit? Deal with us. I mean, they're trying to give you a hard time.
Okay,
Then tell them this is the way it is. This is the way it is.
All right.
I'm gonna come to a board meeting. I don't like
I
it.
was just gonna say, you can also attach the board members' names to it.
Oh, yeah, come get a hold of me. I'm free after 2:30 every day.
sounds good. Next point, shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws, codes, rules, and regulations.
Hmm.
Why did we not include the county codes, rules, and regulations? Understandably, the county is gonna be doing a building code inspection, but there may be other county codes, rules, and regulations that might be pertinent.
I don't see a problem throwing it in there, the word count.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's good.
Throw it in,
Throw it in.
Okay.
do it. That's a no-brainer, yeah. No problem.
The county treasurer's office requires their certificate of authority, which is required to pay occupancy tax, to be posted conspicuously. So when I do these rentals, do you want me to make sure, and if we add county to it, then that's a county code, rule, or regulation that needs to be adhered to.
Yes.
So as it stands, I really can't do anything, but if we add that, then we can require their certificate of authority to be posted as well as
Yes.
our permit.
I say yes.
Okay,
Mirror the county law.
That's a two-way street. You can get information from them too, so.
and when I spoke to Lisa Mandy at the treasurer's office, she indicated that they do require it. It's just, how are they gonna enforce it? They're not boots on the ground looking at these rentals. Also, under that same category, should we require these short-term rental applicants to get a jurisdictional determination from the APA if they're in the APA? We do that for building permits.
We do not do that for building permits. We
I'm
suggest,
sorry, that's what I meant, but you're right, Karen. We suggest that they do it.
we inform them that they're in the Adirondack Park Agency and that it's their responsibility to do a jurisdictional inquiry form is basically how we state it. However, if they are in front of the zoning board of appeals or the planning board for an action, they are required to get a jurisdictional letter from APA, one way or the other. Yes, a permit is required, no, a permit is not required. So we have run into one situation where someone wanted to rent 2 houses on a parcel. And when they had to go for a variance because the parcel wasn't large enough for 2 dwellings, because it was a change of use from a garage accessory building to a dwelling, they were turning it into a dwelling. When they were going to go for a variance for this, they had to go to the APA. APA said, if you're going to pursue this, you're going to have to get a TR permit,
Yeah.
transient residency permit in order to do this. And they would have to obtain, this will mean more to Dane than anyone else, a building permit right from another neighboring property in order to turn this property into 2 dwellings on a substandard lot type thing. And they dropped it. They stopped it. They ended up with just 1 dwelling that they rented out supposedly on this property for short-term rentals. They withdrew the second building. So we've run into it once, but the question became, if there's more than one on a property and it's privately owned, should they be checking with APA to see if they need this transient permit? I don't want to be enforcing APA's rules.
No,
Yeah, I think we should stay out
So
of
I
that.
think we just say you're in the Adirondack Park, it's your responsibility to check with them to see if any permits are required at their level.
absolutely, yeah,
I
yeah,
think so.
yeah. Not gonna put
But
it
that-
for the APA.
But that falls back to shall comply with all federal, state, county, local laws, codes, rules, and regulations. APA is a state agency. So if they have a code, rule, or regulation, that Article 7A umbrellas all of that. So
I mean, it doesn't say that you're ensuring they're following all those, you're just telling them they.
they shall comply. And if
You're
they're
just a nice
going-
cover blanket statement right there. You're helping the APA do their, threaten them. No, but I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean,
Helping the owner
fine,
stay out
yeah.
of trouble.
That's all. You're reminding them. And if something goes on with the APA, that's them and the APA.
I think in most laws that I've seen, whether it be state building codes or zoning ordinances or whatever they are, most of the laws put that statement in there that you shall comply with all the levels of government laws, rules, and regulations.
Boilerplate
But
statement.
it's not up to this entity to be checking that you have checked
Right.
with all of them and
Sounds great.
are following their
Okay.
rules and regulations.
Okay.
You do that now when you go for an APA permit. Part of the permit process, you gotta fill out, have you checked with this agency, this agency? They don't really follow up on that, but you're on the hook, like,
Sure.
they let you know, you better check with these agencies, because of whatever project you're doing.
I found a couple of unpermitted structures within the shoreline setback that we mirror the APA's regulation on that. In which case, if they want to obtain a permit for that structure, you'd have to get an APA determination before they go, well, I'm not really before, but to get the variance from the zoning board for the shoreline setback. So
Yeah,
I
I think
suppose
that-
there's a process already.
The major stuff, the zoning laws, the planning board and stuff is gonna catch it.
Right. Okay. So existing short-term rentals, there are a few of them that I've sent violation notices out to. That I could see that they rented, I mean, some of them stopped renting before September 1st, maybe purposefully, or at least there are reviews where the most recent review is before September 1st, when that was the deadline where they had to submit an application. But then after November 1st, if they don't have all their ducks in a row, they can't rent anymore until they obtain an application. So how long are we going to grandfather these existing short-term rentals in that didn't obtain a permit by November 1st? After November 1st, is it no longer, they're in the pool with the rest of them where they have to start new and they're not grandfathered into 120?
I know when we were crafting this thing, that was the intent. This first year was gonna be a phase them in year. And at the end of that, it was gonna be everybody's playing by the same rules.
Okay,
I'm not saying we have to do that, but I know that was the idea 2 years ago.
How do you want to handle that?
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
well, we're at about 52 permits issued right now. And there are less than a half a dozen that I've identified that were existing short-term rentals, but they never pursued the short-term rental permit for whatever reason. Some people are saying they didn't know. And this violation notice is their first realization that they weren't adhering to our laws. So, I mean, it's not going to increase our permit numbers by more than, let's just say, a dozen or so if we did grandfather them in until they come on board. But it could be an issue in the coming year that,
I don't think they should have 3 months, though. I think they should, once they submit a permit, you have 30 days to determine whether to issue it or not.
Right.
So if they're turning in, to me, if they're turning in a permit and it's not complete, they have that 30 days to basically get it wrapped up.
I can't even accept an application unless the application is complete. But if I do my inspection and I find that there's an unpermitted structure, they're still within that 30-day window. And sometimes it takes longer than 30 days to obtain a permit, a retroactive permit. So,
But I think if you're documenting the file that they're in the process of trying to get this done. I don't know.
we can give them an extension. I mean,
I think I know where you're headed, and I would agree with that. Again, we need to use some judgment. But if they're putzing around just to kick the can down the road,
I still think that should be your baby.
yeah,
That's gonna be your determination.
Okay.
That's my,
I mean, I've had a couple of scenarios where someone didn't get back to me for 20 days and I'm sending them violation notices and they finally come back and it seems like we're getting some compliance, so.
As long as you're not getting steamrolled and
Yeah.
BS, you know, that's my problem is they're leading you on.
Right,
If we don't show our teeth. So listen, here's the deal. I mean, I know you want to get them all, the goal is to get them to comply, but you can't sit there and go, please stop doing that. But please stop hitting. It's just. There's no incentive to even,
if we sick him up.
yeah, there's no incentive for them to comply if there's no teeth to anything. If there's just, well, don't worry about it, manana, they'll let you go another week. I'll go ahead. I mean.
well,
I mean,
notifying them that the town board is going to pursue litigation against non-compliant short-term rental owners. Something like that might be enough fire to get people to move along.
yeah, well. I mean, what's your opinion? Why are they not, what do they have to do that they're not doing?
I mean, some of them aren't responding to my violation notices, some do respond,
they're
request the application.
stonewalling you.
And then
They're
nothing.
stonewalling, you know, they're playing the clock out.
And what do you wanna do? Do you wanna
Yeah,
pull
they're
their
renting, right?
application?
Well, some of them are renting, some of them aren't. It's hard to say without this address identification and activity service. I mean, unless I'm staking out the short-term rental and looking to see the activity on the property, I don't see how I.
You're the
prove-
short-term rental agent or the
Officer.
officer, sorry, thank you. And when you have a question or something that needs to be brought into compliance, you go to Karen or
Or to
John or.
to the board.
To the board, okay.
I would think that's how it works. I
Well,
mean,
I think this is how we handled the last situation. If someone's not complying, we bring it to the board, you decide if you wanna commence litigation. And I think that's how we have to handle.
But it's your baby. When
So-
you need us.
so if I feel
So,
like
and
someone
then-
is snowballing me, then I'll bring it to you, but otherwise I'll use my judgment
Yes.
to,
Yeah. That's
okay.
good.
I could do that.
Well, bring up that one,
Right.
we have one now that
no. I
Chris
agree.
sent a notice of non-compliance and the lady's screaming she didn't know that she had to register and she's been in business since May. So she'll, what do you do?
Ignorance is no
I know,
defense, you know that. I said to the cop, I'm still getting this, you won't beat the ride, but you can beat the charge. You're not gonna beat the ride.
So.
If I buy a property for an
We're gonna have to figure
Airbnb,
something
the
out.
first thing I do is
She's
go to
away in
town.
Acapulco or something and she won't be back until Monday next week, the
And-
first,
and-
and she's gonna be here Tuesday to go over.
She's been moving forward, I thought.
Yeah, she's moving.
This is some, I don't think we talked about this one yet.
I think we did. She sent a check, right?
No.
You wanted to know.
No.
She's in Acapulco.
Yes.
You can't-
Oh, you did send a check.
Right.
That's
To
right.
know if you should hold
But
it
no,
or something.
Yes.
filled out application.
But
Linda.
meanwhile, she's booked currently. So do we require her to not rent out for the time being? Or, I mean,
No future booking, so she's gotta play ball. She can't sit there and just run and go, I didn't know. Again, I'm
Well,
not
she's
buying
coming
it.
on Tuesday, right? You said?
Yeah, but if we can get that settled in a week. or
Yeah,
10 days.
this whole I don't know stuff, that's what I would say to a cop, I know how fast I was going, geez, I don't know, you tell me.
That's where I think that 30-day comes into play. If you're if you've got the permit, you're in the process, let's get it rolling
Yeah.
and pretty much
That's
wrapped
all-
up in that
right.
30-day.
Come home from
period.
Acapulco and get your business taken care of.
Oh, she is, believe me, she'll be here
Jeekers.
Tuesday.
It's not my problem. I live in Acapulco. I love to have that problem.
Point the permit.
Well,
Oh, no, she was on vacation.
But you need to have, we need to have your back, and you need to know we have your back, that we're not micromanaging you, we're supporting you. And the reason you have that position is because we feel you can handle that. If you can't handle a certain area, that's where Karen or John or whoever comes into play, or the town board, or Mary. But you need to know that, you know, we're here to support you.
Well, we can work on it case by case. We
Yeah.
bat things back and forth, so if we end up feeling like we're being played along, we'll let you know.
But also for us, for the board, we need to make sure that if there is an issue being brought to us, we need to bounce that back to where it's supposed to be. We can't, oh, well, I'll do what I can do and change or whatever. That's not our position to do that. That's your job. So, I mean, I'm not, I don't want to come across like I'm just throwing it right back on you. But you're capable of doing that.
right,
And if you have an issue, come to us.
okay.
I think,
Is that
I
fair?
think she's 100% right, and we have to give
Support.
them, and we'll
Yeah.
support them, because we just got another one today. We found out the guy's got a porch. He just bought the house. There was no permit from whoever owned it before him. What do? You know,
Right,
he
they-
says, well, the town didn't, we don't go and, when you're buying a house, give you all the information. They should come and see, make sure nothing's wrong. But
Yeah.
people
them a
don't know.
violation.
Everywhere.
Give them X amount of days to rectify, and if
Yeah.
they don't, that's your position to enforce it.
Barry, should we have a specific time period in there just in case we need it?
Is that what you're saying about the 30 days, Karen?
I wouldn't, I mean,
Okay,
I don't know,
I
It's up
think
to the
we've
board.
already got it in the 30 days to
Okay.
process the permit. And then we'll look at it case by case, and if they say, well, we're gonna have this done in a week, well, get it done in that week, otherwise we've got a problem type of thing.
Yes.
So we'll look at it on a
Okay.
case by case
Yes, it
basis.
Sounds good.
And if they don't send in their application, then that's when we'll bring it to you.
Next point, definition of guest registry. We don't have any definition. It just says the guest registry must be kept. So I've had that question asked, well, what do you want? Name, address, phone number, amount of people. Some people indicate that the Airbnb or Verbo provides a registry. If they have to go back and look and who stayed there on such a date, they can do that. But Airbnb and Verbo put up a wall over personal information. It'll just have, maybe a first or last name, no contact info. You have to actually communicate through Airbnb or Verbo. So I don't know what your intent of keeping a guest registry was, as far as keeping track of who is staying or.
I think what we wanted was just names, so that if there's a problem, we can somehow try to communicate with the owner that, Fred was out there shooting fireworks off at 2 a.m.
Okay.
I think this is on paper, it looks good. Practically, it's not gonna, people aren't gonna put, I was just at an Airbnb over the weekend. They required a guest registry. I put nothing down.
You don't have to. Yeah.
I put nothing down.
Right.
Airbnb collects the information. They said, I want an accurate number of guests because we're gonna charge accurately. I paid for 2 guests. I had 4 people. I'm just saying, in practicality, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Nobody's going and checking that. Let's be honest about it. I understand why it's there. I'm not saying take it out. I'm just saying it's not gonna be very reliable and people aren't gonna pay attention to it.
And if it ever became a legal issue, I'd imagine law enforcement could subpoena for that information from Airbnb, but even at that, how accurate is it?
Yeah.
This all goes back to the person whose name is on the who put down to rent that place. That's the person who's renting it and the owner, between him and the owner, that's the point of contact. That person Dane say goes in, he puts in whatever, he puts in, he's the person who's gonna get it, they're gonna get a hold of. The rest of it's, what happens is what they're gonna do is, well, who did it? Well, someone's gonna pay for that. And if so-and-so doesn't cough the beans up and say who it was, they're gonna get stuck with it. They'll take care of itself.
Yeah, I think it's an owner issue, not
Yeah.
a town issue.
You go to trailheads, like for hiking, you go to trailheads, they have
A sign in book.
name,
Yeah.
where you're from, in and out, that's it. They
You
just
don't
wanna
have to sign
know,
it.
they just wanna know. And like Dane said, there's no enforcement. It's
Right.
a shot in the dark that may got lucky. Even then, it's still gonna go back to the person whose name is on, who's renting it. Who contacted everybody? Who's this under? Who's paying for it? That's who they're gonna contact. That's who gets the bill for anything that's screwed up. And he can take it out with his friends or the 10 or wherever are hanging out there. He can hash it out with them. They can
That's
take care of
not
their
the
own
owner,
business.
The owner's gonna have.
Yeah, that's it. That's all on them. That's not,
We deal with the owner. The
Yeah.
owner deals with that, but anyone else.
yeah,
So you want the owner to keep just a name and a date range? The
That's
person,
their business. Isn't it?
but a guest registry must be kept. What? I mean,
I mean, I
Yeah.
would say, take
They
a name,
enforce it.
take a name. Well, I don't know why we'll ever ask for it, so I mean, if,
Yeah, I agree.
John
It's,
Doe.
it's probably never gonna do any good, but why not leave in there just a name registry? Probably won't ever solve a crime, but.
If somebody wanted to put their information, they're gonna put it down. If they don't want you to, they're gonna
They
do
don't
it.
because
They're gonna put a
too many
date.
people, they aren't gonna.
yeah, you know.
Or if you're gonna be there with somebody, you shouldn't be there, then you don't want no names down.
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
How you doing?
So cross off address, phone number, email, et cetera, just leave name.
Well, in the Article 7, again, that where they cross off the name address, that's his bullet point. The article actually says a guest registry must be kept. Chris's question is, what do you consider a guest registry?
Guest
So you're saying the
Names.
owner is just a list of names?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
whatever they.
believe it as it is though, because if they take that as requiring more, they're not saying that, but it. You know what I mean? Like, I would just leave it. 'cause they
Yeah.
can-
Yeah,
it's
don't
their
enforce it, just
discretion
leave.
on what they put.
okay,
I
but
like that.
you don't want me to check to make sure they're doing it, just inform them when I do the
No.
inspections?
It's not that important.
Okay. Next point, looking to save the town a little bit of money here, can we change certified registered mail notices to standard mail? And Mary, maybe you have some input on this as far as.
Chris sent out a batch of like 12. And they were, as you see, almost $9 a piece.
Yeah.
The same thing could be accomplished by regular mail without requiring it to be certified.
Then you don't know if they're.
Then you don't know if they
Yeah, we
got
don't
it
know if they
or
got
if
it.
they're gonna fix
Well-
the
Well,
problem.
there's a presumption in the law that if it's mailed, they got it.
Oh, really?
For legal purposes, it's sufficient.
I've had a
I
few
don't know if
come
you
back to
actually
me.
wanna know. if they-
Well, the other issue that I've run into is if you send them a certified letter once, they don't comply, whatever, if they get the letter, they do nothing. You send them a second certified letter, they don't even go and pick it up. As Soon as they know who it's from, they don't even pick it up.
Yeah.
And you get it back.
I've had a few of them come back already, at least 4 or 5. So I suspect that's what's going on.
And I know I talked to Melissa in the courts about this, and for the courts, what she's been doing is when she sends out court papers, she sends them out certified and a copy of it, regular mail. So the assumption is they're getting it one way or the other.
I think if
But-
legally it's fine for standard mail, then we just do standard mail
Yeah.
and not deal with the cost.
Okay.
Okay. So we could remove the certified registered mail requirement from the,
I would just say first class.
Okay.
That's what this whole page is about, right?
yes, at the very bottom of that page, however, I retract my, yes, the fines may be too low, reducing compliance with the local law. There's a bullet point at the bottom of that page. This is something that Lake George went through, that they had increased their fines period, a few times before compliance increased. So,
Warrensburg did the same thing, right?
yeah, I think that you're right.
Yeah, we discussed, we said it went up to a certain point, then everybody started complying.
Yeah,
It got rich enough.
Warrensburg, they raised it like, it was $200
per day, I think.
Now it's $200 per day.
Yeah.
But it makes people open their eyes.
Well,
Or
so
we
the
have it,
thing we'd have to do here is a fine of not more than $9.50 per violation. And then your violations are defined as every week. they're
every
in
week that
violation.
is in violation.
Day has been held unconstitutional, so we can't do per day, but per week has been upheld.
Okay,
So what are we changing?
to add language to have it per week.
Yeah. I can work on this section and then, because the board's gonna have to approve any of the
Right.
amendments anyway,
Yep.
so we can draft something and then you guys can approve it.
Okay. Next point. This is, we kind of touched up on this before. But if a short-term rental permit applicant is in the process of a zoning board or planning board approval, do we have the ability to grant an extension? Let's say I do the inspection and I find an unpermitted structure, they're 15 days into their permit. The initiation of the permit process, they're gonna need more than 15 days to come into compliance. Can I give them an extension?
Why not issue their permit with
With
conditional
condition,
upon
yeah.
the result of the
Yeah,
site plan review or zoning board of appeal action?
Perfect.
right,
Yeah.
which is what we touched up on before.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. This is something I kind of got from Lake George. But it came up a few times at some short-term rentals here. One of the renters was allowing parking over their treatment fields, over the leach fields.
I wouldn't worry about it.
That's their property.
He's gotta fish his car out of the septic tank,
Oh, yeah.
let him have a.
That's a them problem, not you problem.
My concern is that it could break the system and pollute the water, like if it's, if it's a non-conforming pre-existing septic, it's on the Hudson River. It passed the septic inspection, but if somebody drives over it, you're not gonna realize that it's leaking into the lake or the Hudson. I don't know if that's,
Again, I think this is getting a little too far. I don't think you're gonna be driving around looking and making sure people aren't parking on septics, you know, I mean, and to be honest with
You
you,
don't even know where they are on the property sometimes.
yeah, even if they're marked, a lot of times the renters aren't gonna care,
hmm,
you know, they're gonna,
Not my problem.
you know, that's an owner problem again, I think.
Mhm.
I kind of feel like it would affect the quality of the neighbors, of the
It may.
water.
It may, but we
Oh, I
we
agree.
have no control over it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean,
That's all.
practically, I just don't, I understand what you're saying, I understand the sentiment, I just don't think practically there's anything we can really
Still
do.
on the
See
owner.
what's in.
The owner's gonna have to take care of that if it does happen.
Okay,
You know, could be something else wrong with it. Other than that, I don't know.
yeah, I, like I said, I think Lake George required it to be flagged, not that you can't park there, but it requires the owner to indicate where it is, for the renters, they didn't realize it, but.
I had a tenant in my commercial building, blacktop over our leach field. He
That's a-
paid to take the blacktop back.
I say that's a problem.
hmm.
Shared septic.
Shared septic, should we require, a change to their deed for maintenance easement if there isn't one? That's a common thing when you do.
We've
have
come
shared
across
septic.
this situation in one recently where we're told that the septic is shared by a neighboring property. And I've had one instance where someone installed a septic system on a parcel next to theirs. They actually own both parcels. And what I had them do, I talked to New York State Department of Health about it. It actually fell under their jurisdiction anyway. It was a commercial thing, but and I have someone else who's proposing to do a septic system on someone else's property. So what we've been doing is if a septic is not on your own property, and it's a new system or something, we're making them show that they put an easement to service that septic system in their deed. If it's not on that property, that's what he's getting at here. but I'm not sure, if it's existed that way for years and there's not a septic issue, I don't know that we have any teeth to make them put an easement. With the septic inspection that we're getting, we're not gonna know if it's on somebody else's property anyway. We were just told that in this one particular case. So, that's what he was asking. Should we do anything about it? Should we be concerned about it or just let it continue the way it is? If there becomes a problem, then it's a civil matter between the two parcels anyway.
There you go.
Yeah,
Keep her nose out of it.
if for some reason the owner won't let him go do the inspection, well, then you can't give him a permit.
Right.
Yep.
Or if they can't do the inspection, because, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. For me, that's a stay out of it.
Okay. Are you changing tapes, Chris?
yeah, we're rolling.
I think we answered this one.
How much time has passed before an unpermitted non-conforming structure gets grandfathered in?
Talk about that? No, maybe we didn't.
No,
So-
well, we did. We touched on it a bit. So on those, we're just going to make it a condition of the permit to get it right, to fix it somehow, right? Are you
Right.
good with that for that answer as well?
Yeah,
Just so, I think maybe Chris doesn't have the same understanding of what the word grandfather means is what I have. Correct me if I'm wrong. To me, grandfather means something was built prior to legislation that regulated.
Correct.
It's not a function of time.
right.
It's a function of, was it built before there was a law saying you can't do that?
Right.
It's time and use, but yes.
Okay,
Sure, but if we find something that we can't prove was put there in a time when it was required to get a permit, then we don't pursue it. I think that's,
say that again.
if we find something that we can't provide evidence of when it was built.
Well,
Then
that's
really-
not on you, that's on the property owner.
Yeah,
So they would have to prove it's prior non-conforming use.
So if we have something within a shoreline setback, a structure, there's no permit for it. We can't figure out when it was placed there, but as far back as our zoning code goes, there was a shoreline setback for structures within 50 feet. There weren't any allowed more than greater than 100 square feet in size.
if they come to you and say, well, this is grandfathered, then you say, well, when was it built?
And if they can't prove because they're a new homeowner, yeah, we've had that happen twice now, where there's an old, whether it be
What's your
from the
opinion on that?
70s or 80s, could have been older than that.
In both the cases that he's talking about, we have gone as far as contacting other agencies that would have had jurisdiction over these things. And in two cases, they aren't going to pursue it because it's too old to pursue. They can't figure it out. In
The Army Corps of Engineers expressed an interest.
right, the other entity, Army Corps of Engineers, has expressed an interest, but it's been months and we've heard nothing from them. So what do you do? At this point, we issued it with a condition. That if we heard anything from them, we would, so I think maybe it's the same situation. We'll just handle it with condition.
They have a good case for the variance. I think, because a couple of the,
Depends on what board you're sitting in front of.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's right.
well, two,
Might want to reel it in there, boss.
well, there's 5 conditions that the ZBA is supposed to consider, or is it 4?
Okay,
But
this is the town board, we're not.
Town
going
board.
zoning.
yeah,
We're not
let's,
going
let's move on.
planning.
Yeah, please.
So if you see something that's a
That's
violation.
no problem.
Yeah, he's have to come to the zoning, but he has to go before the right structure of government to get that handled. Go in front of the zoning board.
What were you gonna say, Mary?
Our zoning enforcement officer, our short-term rental officer. Can be assured that one recommendation he might make is go to the zoning board of appeals for a variance.
Yeah.
In this particular situation. Frequently is well, I don't know about the new board, But according to the state criteria, typically that's acceptable. It's not self-created. There's no other way to do it. But they have a case for variance.
Great.
Mary,
Mary?
I was just gonna say, if they have a violation on their property, then I think it's a violation, you can't issue the permit, it's on them to show you that it was a legally permitted use before. But if they can't show you that, that's not on you to prove.
But what if they're a new owner?
It's their, I mean.
They inherited it with,
Figured that out before they bought it, I mean.
They have deed searches and stuff. They have a lot of legal stuff. They
Yeah.
look through everything. Don't figure, they bought it. I mean, we can't walk people by the hand through life. But I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but. But at what point do you say you're on your own, fly? Figure it out for yourself. Life's hard, get a helmet. At what point, you know, what do I do? I don't know. Tell me. What do you do? Well, it's wrong. Go to the zoning board. I'm sure they'll get direction from them. Or there's a. I mean, they have to have some. A little bit of responsibility here. I mean,
we do have two properties that have these structures within the shoreline setback. One of them's in the APA, the other one is not. The one that's in the APA is not pursuing it because there's no evidence that would hold up in court of when it was built.
see, I think that's the
Me and
problem.
the APA have very different opinions on how to enforce things.
They
'Cause
like to
I would
live
look
hanging
at it opposite way. Like, I would bring the violation and it's up to the homeowner to show me. Or the court that it's
Well,
legal.
based on what APA told us, though, we've already informed that particular owner that we weren't gonna pursue it.
That's fine. I mean, it's ultimately up to the board and you guys.
I think practically, you said you've had a couple of instances and you've contacted 3 agencies. And basically none of them, except for the Army Corps of Engineers, who you haven't heard back from in months, is gonna pursue it. So again, practically, I don't think it makes any sense to try to pursue something like this.
Okay,
When it comes down to, what's really gonna happen in the real world, I don't think it.
Is that how you feel?
Unless it's an unsafe structure, if it was something that was dilapidated or questioning, personally, I wouldn't have a problem with it. You know,
Would that fail for other reasons, though? If it was an unsafe structure?
would the county be looking at it as an unsafe structure? Probably.
Do they not look at things within the shoreline setback?
I don't know.
I don't think they
We'll
do.
have to have that conversation with
Yeah.
them. We'll deal with it
Okay.
case by
Yes.
case again. We'll move on.
moving on.
Okay, so, just a thought to put out there. Should we require our leash law to be adhered to if a short-term rental owner brings pets? And they let the pets loose and now it's going on neighbor's property, is it a civil issue?
Yeah,
civil.
That's an ordinance and it's New York state law.
We have the leash law, all that. It's already there.
So
So I think we're covered.
that's already in place.
Should we require them to put the leash law in their rule
No,
to
I
just
wouldn't.
notify renters or just? let it be?
No, that's not our business. Again, they get control of
They
your dog.
need to know that.
Rule number one, owning a pet, have control of the animal.
Anybody.
If you
should-
don't have control of the animal, it ain't, you're not. I don't know, that's
Mhm.
a very broad law to everybody. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay.
And if maybe the Airbnb or the STR owner doesn't want pets. They have that
Some
option
of
too.
them do that, but then others who
Some
do allow
pet
it
friendly.
and
yeah.
then goes on the neighbor's property. I've had a few complaints from people saying, this neighboring short-term rental's coming over, the dog's coming over.
Yeah, they gotta get a hold of the landowner,
They should call
animal control. someone.
the dog control office.
Yeah, it's
There's-
already
there's
covered by
Levers to be
somebody else.
used out there already.
Okay.
Besides involving us.
Okay. So if next point down, if I find a short-term rental that has a listing for a short-term rental and there's no permit obtained, can we, and this maybe we should start with Mary with this one, can we require them to pull the listing offline?
I mean, you could tell them to pull it down. The only way you're actually going to get that to happen is with a court order.
Okay,
I mean, just by proxy of having this local law, they're not supposed to be renting without a permit.
I suppose if we get an address identification service, that would eliminate my concern with that, because at least there's some monitoring going on. My thought is if there's a listing and all I have are the reviews to go by. It could very well be an active short-term rental and I just wouldn't know, and I'm spinning my wheels.
Is there teeth here, Mary, that lets us go after a situation like this? Yeah, but this, is there teeth in this document? If somebody's renting STR and they haven't made any effort to get a permit,
Yeah, I mean, this would be easy. We would file a complaint with the court and then do a motion for summary judgment. And
That's where she comes in the law. That's where she comes into play.
Here, if you're renting STR and you don't get a permit, we're gonna go after you.
No, it does. That's the whole law.
Okay,
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're in violation of this document. That's the
certainly
law.
applied.
Well, that's why you have local laws.
But can we require them to make this statement legally that he has written down here?
Like, let's say they had a listing, but now they're no longer pursuing the permit, they're done with the short-term rental thing. The listing's still up and they're telling me after receiving a violation notice
Right.
that they decided not to rent it anymore. How do we handle that?
You still have a listing up.
Well,
Right,
but there's no, you unilaterally have no enforcement power. Like,
Right.
you can say to them, take the listing down.
Yes.
Practically, they can say, I'm not doing it. And then without a court order, preliminary injunction, there's really nothing that you can do.
So they just from the town board with that.
Yes.
And then-
okay,
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. So so next bullet point, if a short-term, we're coming around where, we're gonna do permit renewal. If a short-term rental permit holder lets it lapse or expire, but then wants to renew it, let's say a few months down the road or a year down the road, are we gonna require them to get a county inspection, a septic inspection, start fresh?
What's the threshold?
There's nothing in, I don't have any provisions for that. I mean, technically,
Figure
they
it
need
out.
to renew, as far as what I could see, prior to the 1 year anniversary of their.
Okay, let's name it, let's name a time frame. Let's say, what's reasonable? A year is definitely not reasonable.
30
You are
days.
definitely a
30
new
days.
SDR.
30 days.
30 days.
30
Do we,
days.
do we send notice that their permit's
I
expiring?
will
That's
be
the next
30 days.
question.
That's one of the questions I have.
Okay.
You feel 30 days is enough time for them to respond?
Provided we give them a notice, yeah.
Should we
30,
give them 60
anybody.
Oh my
days?
God,
No, anybody can respond in 30
you'd be in the
days.
ground,
30
not
days?
to,
Yeah.
Okay,
if they're business, they'll respond within 3 days.
But I do think we should send a reminder, a courtesy reminder,
yeah,
with that they're coming up to expiration
yeah.
or whatever, you know.
How much is that gonna cost us?
If we send it regular mail,
Nothing.
you know, not even. $1
Material.
per letter.
Now, where is it up upon the owner of the STR? Just coming upon him to be aware of his own permits.
Yes, but I think as a courtesy, I should reach out, just send them either a letter in the mail. I have everybody's email. I can send them an email.
I'll do an
Save
email.
postage.
Do an email. Don't break your back. Responsibility, landowner responsibility. He wants to run an STR. We don't expect you to hound anybody, run around saying, hey, you're up in 30 days. I mean, you got your own life to live. Everybody here does. I would
And they-
expect you to go around chasing people to remind them that their permit's gonna.
And if they
run
let
out.
it lapse, give them a 15-day after the fact notice, hey, you're 15 days past your expiration date. You have another 15 days to come into compliance or your permit will expire. I mean, technically, they can't be renting out after
Mhm.
that 1 year anniversary, so they could potentially be 15 days in the
How much work
violation.
do you want to do?
As much as you want me to do.
How much, do you wanna email them all? You wanna take that upon yourself to, oh my gosh, here they
I
go.
mean, I
You're gonna have to
could,
go through every permit.
but I could also assemble a generic email and just copy and paste names in it. I don't think.
Yeah, you
He's
can do that.
he's
That's
got
fine.
an Excel sheet already
Yeah, that's
going
fine.
with emails, so it's gonna be,
It wouldn't be
Let's-
time consuming, excessively time consuming.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could do a form letter and save it and do it as an attachment.
Yeah, that's fine,
Right.
yeah. I just don't want, too much effort.
Yeah.
Trying to get grown-ups to be grown-ups.
The one thing I wanna caution
There's
you
too much of
on
that in the world already.
is if you do it, you gotta keep doing it. Because if next year rolls around and you don't do it, the defense is gonna be, well, they emailed me last year.
Uh-huh.
They didn't email me this year, so I didn't know.
Sometimes it's best just to walk away from it.
Okay, let it be, and
Well,
then,
I'm just saying, if you do it this year, you make sure you do it. every
You're locking
year.
yourself into something that legally could be used against you.
Well,
And anybody after who does your job, who chooses to do it, you know, somewhere years down the road or whatever, you know what I mean?
I'm happy to execute whatever the town board wants me to do.
Another
so-
thing too, besides him wanting to do it, do we want to be on the hook for that? I don't want to be. I mean, I'm old school. Your permit runs out, that's on you. But you never told me, it's not my responsibility. I mean, that's just me. I was a free range kid growing up, but you know, but I mean, how does that open us up legally in the future? That's the question.
I'm a coddled millennial. I think I think an email would be okay.
Okay,
I don't think it takes much time. I understand the argument that we have to
But you,
keep up
but
on
the
it.
thing
but
is, you're opening ourselves up for.
I
a whole
understand that.
future.
I think the town can do it. I mean, we got to remember that the Airbnbs are good for business in the town
Well, they
too.
are, but
You know,
I'm not gonna
so-
be someone's adult.
No, I understand that
I'm not gonna
completely. I think an
self-enforce.
email is okay though.
all right, so 30 days prior that they're gonna expire. And then after the expiration, just, I mean,
I think one email.
One email.
30 days prior.
Done.
Yep. And if they don't come in and renew, then it's a violation notice.
Well, the permit
Well, we actually
expires.
don't even know that they want one.
It wouldn't be a
so-
violation,
Right.
but if they continue to rent it out, it would be.
Right.
And if we have this address identification service, we would know that they're continuing to rent it out rather than
Right.
guessing by reviews. So,
I get the same thing.
If they forget, they're talking about a new application fee and a new septic.
right.
I'm just trying, you know, I'm trying to be reasonable, not go over the top, but like. I have multiple businesses with more insurance than I care to even imagine, you know, and if one of my policies is gonna expire, I like the courtesy reminder, and I understand that it's not necessarily the town, but it does help in certain instances, and I do think they're good for the town overall, so.
Even like when the DMV sends you a renewal, it's nice to have that renewal.
They also send you a reminder after the fact that you didn't renew.
I don't think
No,
so.
you
they
get a
do
first
not.
and a second and a
Yeah.
third, and then they stop.
Okay.
And then you look at your dashboard and you're like.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
The flashing light.
They were right.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
Are you good with that?
Yes.
I would put in the email, if you don't renew and you come, and then you decide to apply again, it's a whole new application with the fee and the subject, because that's
Inspection.
motivation for them to actually renew it and not.
If your permit
Yeah.
expires, you have to start over.
Sounds
Okay, Can
good.
you
We'll
put
do.
like, this is a courtesy in the email?
Yes,
Maybe that's the opening line, the courtesy email. to
a
remind
courtesy
you.
reminder, yeah.
So should he put it on letterhead and just make that a form that he can just attach to each?
That's a good
individual
idea, actually,
email?
make it generic, and
Yep.
just throw it on town letterhead and attach it.
Very good. We'll do.
Have that saved, and when one comes up, you can just.
And can you set that up so annually it's automatically done for you, so you don't worry about it?
Not with emails. I don't
Not
think it'll be
yet.
too much to, I've got my list, we're at 52 permits for the time being, I think, and, you know, it's staggered. Not everyone's gonna get a reminder on the same time. But if we did have buy software that would do that, it wouldn't be. We may not be able to afford that. It's, all right, so one more thing on this list. This came up this weekend, we had a short-term rental renter who couldn't access the rental property because the owner didn't plow or arrange for snow removal.
Why are they calling you? about
They
that?
didn't call me, I saw this on,
It
Facebook?
was on Facebook. I
Yeah,
saw it. too.
It's,
Yeah, I don't think it's our business.
no.
They just won't be able to rent their property next time.
couldn't
No.
it be a safety, my thought, and this is the only reason.
Maybe it is, but then it's on the owner for liability.
If somebody goes in there and takes upon themselves to get there, and then an ambulance or a fire needs to be
That's not
called.
that, that's on the owner, not the owner.
Stay out of the middle of that.
Yeah, don't get
Okay.
involved in
Yeah.
that, don't not do it.
I understand where you're coming from, Chris, but it's not, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it's on the owner. The owner's gonna be,
Call the owner.
Yeah, get a reimbursement from the owner, that's,
Yeah, there you go.
Send the plow bill.
yeah.
Tell that guy he owes you dinner.
that owner was in
Joe-
Asia or
Joe-
something
Joe-
like that, I think they saw.
person that couldn't get in, no help, give me my money back.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
That's what-
All right, well, I appreciate you all taking the time to help me out with this, and, you have any questions for me?
I think you're doing a heck of a job,
Oh,
you're very
thank you.
thorough, you're going over everything, which is great, I mean, you covered a lot, that's
And I'm
good.
sorry it took so many months for us to get to this.
Oh, no worries. happy to do my job and I'm happy to be working for you all, so.
Well, the main season's coming, you know, the big season coming up on it, so. See how we go. We done? Good. Anybody else?
Make a motion.
I'm good.
We're out of here.
You need that motion adjourned?
I'll second.
All right,
Are you doing an attorney?
you got a
Right,
motion
privilege
adjourned in a second?
No, we already took
Okay.
care of it.
Annie,
Yeah, all in
Andy, yeah.
favor?
Annie made the
Aye.
motion in a
Yeah,
second.
I got it.
Aye, we're all in favor.
Hey, hey.
Okay, gotta go and put it in.